We're live. Welcome to Daily Confidence for Entrepreneurs. My name is Mustafa Hussaini, your host for the show. At Daily Confidence, we share tips, strategies, and actionable advice that you could use to boost your confidence around different areas of your business, whether it's finance, whether it's sales, mindset, you name it. We've got experts that we bring into that they will share strategies with you. Now, this episode is sponsored by Persayo. Persayo specializes in helping coaches and consultants create and implement their one-page marketing plan in 3 days or less. And they've got this course coming up, Simple Marketing Formula, where you can create and implement your one-page marketing plan in 3 days or less. I'm going to share the link here in the comments if you wanted to go check it out, and how to learn how to create and implement your one-page marketing plan with a group of entrepreneurs and do it there. Now, I have an amazing guest. My guest is Rennie Gabriel. Welcome, Rennie.
Thank you, Mustafa.
Great to see you. And today we're talking about 3 secrets of the wealthy. Which favorite topic? We're talking about money. And I love talking about money. Well, one is, I love making money. And it's a topic that not too many people actually talk about it, especially like on podcasts. Like, it's not a conversation people run around and be like, hey, let's talk about money, right? So
that's right.
Having the right mindset around money is amazing. So welcome, Rennie. How's your day going so far?
It's going great. It's busy and I'm getting stuff done.
Beautiful. So I'm going to do the proper introduction for Rennie, and then we're going to dive right into it. After 2 divorces and a business failure, Rennie went from broke at age 50 to multi-millionaire after learning the 3 secrets of the wealthy, despite failing high school math. So he's probably not very good at math. He now donates 100% of the profits from his online programs to a charity that trains rescue dogs for wounded soldiers. His award-winning best-selling book, Wealth on Any Income, has been translated into 8 languages. Welcome, Rennie.
Oh, thank you, Mustafa.
Great to see you. How's your day so far?
Terrific. And I enjoy talking about the 3 secrets of the wealthy, because that's all there really is. It's not a complicated process. And, as an example for your listeners, what I learned from wealthy people, as an example, was not to focus on paying off debt, but to focus on building my net worth instead. And if I would have done what my CPA and other financial gurus told me to do, or tell other people to do, I'd still be struggling over money and not be a multimillionaire.
Absolutely.
So I'd still have to work to support myself, and wouldn't be able to donate 100% of my business profits to charity.
Absolutely. So, Rennie, what's your story? How did you get into doing what you're doing now?
Well, struggling all my life over money, I realized I want to have a solution. This is painful. At one point, things were so bad, I actually had to collect soda bottles and cans to get the refund money to buy food for my family.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I say I know what it's like to have no money, I mean no money.
You really mean it.
Yeah, I really mean it. So at this stage of life, to not have to work for a living, to donate 100% of the profits from teaching other people how to handle money powerfully, I'm just very blessed.
Love it. Love it. So what do you do these days, and who do you serve?
Primarily, I serve other entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, speakers, corporate trainers, contractors, realtors. Primarily, I would say my practice is limited to only working with people who have to handle money.
Work with coaches, entrepreneurs, authors, and the rest of them who need to or do handle money. And what do you do for them? What do you teach them?
The foundations, the fundamentals. The reality is, this is not taught in school. Teachers can't teach what they don't know or haven't learned. Parents can't teach what they've never learned and what they don't know. So what I found is 9 out of 10 people have never learned the foundations or fundamentals of handling money effectively.
Absolutely.
So that's where we start.
Matt, I wonder if are there any schools or any private schools even that teach like money skills, money mindset, or life skills that are not taught in other schools? Do you know of any?
I've asked this question to literally thousands and thousands of people, and a few people have said they learned it in school. They had taken a class where the teacher emphasized this, but the reality was there was no coordination in terms of the school district providing it or the school system providing it. It's just they lucked out in taking a class from a specific teacher who wanted to pass these skills on.
And it's an essential skill.
Right. That's why I say I only work with people who have to handle money. The reality is that's everyone.
Yeah. It's like it is nice for me to study geography and history and all that, but it probably doesn't pay my bills.
Exactly. You're not going to pay your mortgage with what the size of Liechtenstein.
Exactly. So what are some of the myths that people believe around money?
Oh, well, I alluded to one of them in my opening comments, and that is the idea that people believe they should pay off consumer debt or credit card debt before they begin building their net worth or saving or investing. That I'll give myself as an example. When I was age 50 and broke, I had credit card debt. I didn't even have a good credit score. But what I was doing was taking another concept of the wealthy and paying myself first. And you've probably heard of that. Most of your listeners have probably heard of that. It's irrelevant that they've heard of it because unless they're doing it, the fact they know about it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Knowledge is the booby prize.
Right.
So I was paying myself. I was earning $5,000 a month. It's not a lot of money. That's why the book is titled Wealth on Any Income. I'm setting aside 10% or $500 a month. I'm buying some individual stocks with that. And in 3 years, I saved up $18,000. That $18,000 could have paid off my credit card debt. And had I paid off my credit card debt, when the opportunity came along to buy a 3-unit piece of real estate, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I'd have had no debt, and I would have still been struggling and have no net worth. Instead of having millions of dollars like I have, I'd have just had no debt. So there should not be a focus on paying off credit card debt. That's the biggest myth of all. The next one is small amounts of money don't count. They do count. As an example, people go to Starbucks and they'll buy some foo-foo drink and a muffin, spend $10 a day and think, it's nothing. It's $10 a day is not going to do anything. Well, that's $300 a month. $300 a month over 30 years, properly invested, will create a $1 million portfolio.
$300 a month.
$300 a month will create a $1 million portfolio if it's invested intelligently.
Very interesting. So, small amounts of money
do matter.
Do count. What was the first one you covered again?
Focusing on paying off debt first.
Okay. And what's the third one?
The third one happens to be, it's funny, is that you need a good credit score to create wealth. Like I said, at age 50, I had credit card debt. I didn't have a good credit score. I was following my second divorce. But what you can do, and what I did, is I aligned myself with my third wife and this realtor who had good credit scores. And together we purchased real estate. So their credit scores were used to purchase the real estate. I mean, I was added to the loan, but the bank didn't care about me. My credit score was lousy. So you don't need a good credit score to create wealth.
So, what should people do with their debt on their credit card or other debt? How do you deal with that? Well, let's say somebody's watching today. They're like, you know what? I want to start doing this, but I got 10, 15, $20,000 in credit card debt. How do we go about it? How do we get it started? What's
Okay.
what's the thinking around it?
Okay. Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Okay. So have you heard of the expression pay yourself first?
Yes, that was my other question. What exactly do you mean by that?
Oh, that's a great question because I was going to ask you to explain it. So,
So
you've heard of the expression, just like most people have heard of it.
right.
But 9 out of 10 people can't explain it, and
Mhm.
9 out of 10 people are not implementing it. And when you're talking about getting rid of the debt, that's what you do instead. So I'm going to explain it.
Okay.
I said I was earning $5,000 a month and setting aside $500 a month. That $500 a month is what I was paying myself first with, setting it aside that I would never spend. And I was investing it. And that investing is what gives me the passive income so I don't have to work for the rest of my life. So paying yourself first means you're first in line. You're not paying the grocer. You're not making the car payment. You're not making the mortgage payment. That's money you're setting aside to keep for the rest of your life. In addition to that, you want to set aside some money to spend later, maybe another 5 or 10%. The reality, if someone lives on 80% of what they're earning, and I don't care if they're a business owner with a volatile income, they're getting a paycheck, if they live on 80% of what comes in, everything will work out. They can make the payments on their credit cards, they can make their mortgage payment, they can buy their groceries, and everything else will work.
Love it. Now, gang, if you're watching or listening, Rennie and I are talking about secrets of the wealthy. If you have any questions about money mindset, and the rest of it, pop it in the comments and we'll do our best to answer your questions. Now, Rennie, here's a curious question. Let's say that my income doesn't cover my expenses right now. And I'm guessing that's a common question.
Yes, it is. And I've had people say that. Go ahead.
Let's say that I'm earning $3,000 a month and my expenses are $5,000 a month. How do I go about this? Do I wait until my expenses are less than my income, or what's the strategy around that?
It's so funny. This is going to sound completely counterintuitive.
Okay.
But I had a psychologist that was a client, and she said something, well, and an attorney. I'll go back to the attorney, because the attorney's income was $5,000 a month, but his expenses were $5,500 to $6,000 a month.
Uh-huh.
So he was short $500 to $1,000 a month to cover his expenses.
Right.
And I said, you need to pay yourself first. He said, Rennie, you're not listening to me. I can't pay myself first. I can't even meet my expenses now.
Right.
So I said, okay, let's say you're short $500 a month and you set aside $250 to keep for yourself, as though you deserve to own some of the money you're working for. Now, let me ask you this. You're short $500 a month. You pay yourself first. Now you're short $750 a month. I got to figure out how to say this clean language, which is not what I did with the attorney. How the heck does it matter that you're short $750 or $500? Does it really make any friggin' difference? And he said, no, I'm short either way. I said, exactly. But now you've got $250 that's yours, like you deserve to have something.
Interesting.
And I said, just do it and see what happens. Guess what? Now that he recognized he wasn't a conduit for the money coming in one hand and going out the other, but he could actually keep some of it, he started earning more money. And he started earning more money than his expenses, because his mind shifted to, if I make more money, I will actually have something to show for it. Where before the thinking was, it doesn't matter how much I earn, I'm not going to have anything. All I can do is cover my expenses. I won't end up with anything anyway. So what does it really matter? That was his thinking. So until he took different actions, his thinking couldn't change.
So would you then suggest someone that is in that situation, which I think there are a lot of people out there that are in that situation. So let's say that I set aside $250 a month. Fine. What happens next for the people that cannot think it through?
When you start paying yourself first, like you deserve to have some of it, you start looking at, how do I generate more money? Where can I trim expenses and make it work out better? You start to look at those things that aren't working. And by the way, one of the things I haven't said, and this is really important, I kind of alluded to it with when I talked about buying the real estate with my wife and this realtor. I didn't say that wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport. No one has to do this by themselves. They can enroll a coworker, a family member, someone else they can trust who doesn't give them flack in supporting them through the process. And the way that I've seen this work is 2 or 3 people support each other to get out of the problem.
Love it.
And it works. You don't have to do this by yourself.
You know what? This is the first time that I actually hear something like this about money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, first time.
Yeah.
And I've attended money seminars and wow.
Well, that's because most people who put on money seminars, most financial gurus are in it to make money more than they are to serve people. They're there to serve people, but I'm turning it around. I'm here to serve people. Making money comes later. Like Zig Ziglar used to say, if you help people just get what they want, you'll get what you want. You got it.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. What's the difference between to credit cards and the rest of it? What's the difference between good debt and bad debt?
Well, good debt is what the wealthy use to create a bigger net worth. And bad debt is consumer debt, like charging a meal on a credit card and paying it off over a few months. Anything that you consume, whether it's a meal, groceries, an automobile, you use up an automobile too, I call that bad debt. Bad debt will not create wealth for you. Good debt will. As an example, I borrowed money, well, myself and my partners, we borrowed money from the bank in addition to our down payment to buy multi-level, multi-unit residential real estate. So I didn't pay off the debt from the bank. Guess who paid it off?
The renters.
Exactly. The renters paid enough rent that we had a profit and made the mortgage payment and the utility payments and everything else. And I walk my talk when I'm talking about taking care of tenants, because through this entire pandemic, 100% of my tenants, except for one, have paid 100% of their rent through the entire pandemic.
How did you pull that off?
Because I take care of my tenants. I treat them like they deserve to be treated as human beings, and they treat me like I deserve to receive my rents.
That's a good business ethic.
Yes.
Right? Treat them like they deserve to be treated. So you're not just taking their money.
Exactly. And there are other people who own properties that don't treat them that way, and their tenants decide to screw them. Fine. I have no sympathy for those landlords.
Absolutely. What's the difference? Wow. How do the wealthy, how is their attitude different towards money? The wealthy.
You know what? I realized I should give you all 3 secrets. And the biggest one is what you're asking me about. It's the attitude. So the wealthy, the 3 secrets are AFI. It doesn't stand for American Film Institute. AFI. AFI, that's the acronym. It stands for attitudes, forms, and investments. The wealthy do have different attitudes, and I'll give you an example. They look at the forms that most of us have seen, but they look at them differently, like the net worth statement or cash flow statement. And the investments, they're not limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. As an example, in the real estate category, there's 24 more than that, different in real estate investment areas that are available. And I can go through that later. But let's get to what you asked about, the attitude. So I'll give you one. And I'll use the expression we already talked about, pay yourself first. When a wealthy person hears familiar information, like pay yourself first, they don't make a statement like ordinary people do. They don't say, oh, I've heard that. Oh, that's not new to me. Oh, doesn't everybody know that? They don't make statements. They ask questions. And the questions start with words like, when? Well, when will I begin doing that? Or what? Like, what investments could I be making? Or where? Like, where does this apply to me? Or how? Pay yourself. How would I do that? Or who? Like, who could support me with that? So a wealthy person asks questions which lead to the answers which produce results. The ordinary person makes a statement when they hear familiar information that leads nowhere.
Interesting.
So that's
they're curious about what's happening. How do I make it happen? Instead of coming up with some dumb response like, oh, I know that. I've read a book on that. Or I've watched a YouTube video on that. And I know it pretty well. Yeah, but your results are not matching, buddy.
Exactly.
I love it. Love it.
So that's one of the attitudes. I wrote a book recently called Attitudes of the Wealthy. I've listed over 30 attitudes that wealthy people have that ordinary people don't. Like, it's okay to talk about money. Ordinary people don't want to talk about money. They're embarrassed. Wealthy people talk about it because they're learning from other wealthy people what they're doing that they may not be doing, that they could be doing.
Very interesting. Talking about money. So how do they, in what context do they talk about money?
All sorts of ways. What stocks they're investing in, what real estate they're investing in, how much they're paying their assistant or other employees, what the salary range is for different people that they might think about wanting to hire. That's talking about money.
So how they're making money, what they're investing in, what's working, what's not working, what are some opportunities out there, and they talk about it.
All of that stuff.
They don't get all creative and intelligent and wise and say, oh, I'm going to keep it all to myself. And I'm not.
Nope. That's not what they're doing.
Now, do these guys know or have some secrets that other people don't?
Yeah. It would probably, the three secrets are attitude, forms, and investments, but I'll give you an example. With the forms, you and I might look at a balance sheet that lists our assets and lists our liabilities and say, oh, look how much equity I have in my house.
Yeah.
A wealthy person doesn't look at the asset form that same way. They don't look at the balance sheet like an ordinary person. They only look for what assets will generate an income. For most people, the house doesn't generate an income, it generates expenses. There's the insurance, there's the utilities, there's the repairs, there's the maintenance. I mean, maybe they're using it for Airbnb, but generally the house provides expenses, not income. So they're looking at what does produce an income. That's all that matters. And is it producing at the level it could be? You know, if they have a large bank balance that's earning next to nothing, maybe it should be allocated a little bit differently. Now, I don't want to say people should not have a bank balance. I mean, I have a multi-six-figure bank balance. but I have insecurities. And when this pandemic hit, my wife and I looked at the bank balance and said, you know what? If not one tenant pays rent, if not one investment pays dividends, if not one investment pays us interest, we still have enough money to last us the next 2 years if no one pays us anything.
That's nice.
Yeah, but that's because I'm insecure.
That's because you're insecure or secure?
Insecure, yes, insecure.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is...
I mean, that's pretty secure to me.
Well, as an example, I'm too insecure to have a job. People say,
okay,
that doesn't make any sense. Well, if I had a job and 100% of my income came from one source and they went out of business, or they decided to fire me or lay me off or merge with another company and make my position redundant, I'd lose 100% of my income, but I'd still have 100% of my expenses. So when I say I'm insecure, I mean, I like to have a large bank balance so I don't have to worry if no one pays me. I don't want to have a job because if I lose it, I've got no more income. So
got it. So that insecurity is leading you to create security.
Exactly.
Right. So you're not like depending on one thing, and
no,
you're not worried about,
multiple streams of income. As an example, when I was building a pension administration company, we had 300 clients. We were able to sell it off to a public company. But what I'm getting at is, let's say one of the clients said to me, Rennie, I think you're a jerk. I don't want to do business with you anymore. So what? We still have 299 people still paying us.
Very nice. That's a nice way to look at it. Speaking of forms and the wealthy people, how do they track their wealth?
Well, one of the good examples is the income and expense form. And by the way, if any of your listeners want copies of these forms, I'll send them out for free. They can go to my website, log on to my, go to wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx. They'll see my TEDx talk. They'll see a 9-step roadmap to complete financial choice. They can send me an email. I'll send these forms out for free.
Let me actually post the link here again. So if you want to get a hang of his forms and get access to Rennie's TEDx talk, where he talks about his roadmap to a complete financial choice, go to, if you're listening to this, go to wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx, TEDx, and then you'll get access to the forms and the talk, the roadmap, and everything else.
Exactly. So as an example, on the income and expense form on the left side, where I talk about where's your income coming from, if someone has a job, they only have one number to fill in there. But what they'll see is there's piles of other places where their income could be coming from. Interest income, royalty income, network marketing income, business income, retirement income, just, a whole host of things that I can't even remember off the top of my head. The point is multiple sources of income. So, a wealthy person looks and saying, am I utilizing all the different sources where I could be having income?
Interesting. Now, when it comes to investments, I mean, we gotta pay ourselves first.
Yeah.
And we talked about securing 10% of. Now, let's touch base on that, because I think a lot of people are unclear on that. If I have an X amount of money coming in, let's say it's $5,000 a month.
Fine.
Do we pay ourselves based on percentages?
Yes.
Is it like 10% of whatever comes in, I put it in an account, and that's my money? That is how I pay myself first.
That's correct.
Right.
And
now,
I've had business owners say, Oh, yes. I pay myself first. I'm the first one to get a paycheck out of my company before I pay the other employees or the other expenses.
That's not how it goes, right?
That's
Is it?
not how it goes. Because
So
with that paycheck, then they're making the mortgage payment, the car payment, and the groceries, and they end up with nothing
you're
because
okay.
they got a paycheck, but they didn't pay themselves first money that they're keeping for the rest of their life.
Here's another technical question. For business owners, do they pay themselves first on on sales, 10% of sales, or is it after expenses?
It could be either way. I had a building contractor who, when I was talking to about paying them himself first, he said, well, Rennie, by the time I pay the vendors and the materials and the office rent and the staff, I can't pay myself first. And I said, are you trying to tell me that you couldn't take 1% from your gross revenue and set that aside and cover your expenses? He said, well, I guess I could. So I said, fine. I mean, his annual revenue was like, I don't know, $500,000-$600,000 a year. So let's say it's 600,000. And by the way, I failed high school math. So let me do this slowly.
Big $6,000 on 1%.
Okay, but 600,000 would be divided by 12 is 50,000 a month. Okay,
Yeah.
So 1% of 50,000. I don't know, what is that?
500 bucks.
500.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I said, are you trying to tell me if $50,000 comes in the door, you couldn't set aside $500? He said, okay, I guess I could. Well, 6 months later, he'd saved up $50,000 because 1% was too little. It didn't change anything.
So he's like, could probably take out more, and then he saved up more.
Exactly, because he found out he could do more. But you got to get started before it can show up. And that's one thing that showed up. The other thing, he was very coachable, by the way. If I said, you ought to do a tax deferred exchange with this piece of property. You ought to sell this piece of property. You ought to rehab this piece of property. You ought to buy flowers for your wife. It didn't matter what I said. He just did it. And in the 6 months we worked together, his net worth increased by $600,000. It's $100,000 a month increase. He just did what I said.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Again, if you're watching or listening, and if you want any results, even half of that, 1/5 of that results, a lot of people will be more than happy, right? That'd be tickled pink. So do you reach out? The website is wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx. Now, Rennie, for what I've learned over the years, once you take that money, once you pay yourself first, you've got to invest that money. You don't
Absolutely.
just put it in an
Yes,
account.
correct.
Now, where do the wealthy invest?
The wealthy, like I said, are not limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. One of the major investments that I found for most wealthy people, including myself, is in real estate. And when someone says, you can invest in real estate, they think, oh, I'll buy a house. Well, guess what? There's 24 different things besides a house. There's multi-unit residential properties. There's office buildings. There's office parks. There's board and care facilities. There's student housing. There's self-storage facilities. There's triple net leases. I mean, I could just go, there's raw land. There's trust deeds. It's just dozens in just investing in real estate.
And so what if I can't really buy anything with $500 a month? What do we do then?
That's where I started. What I did was I bought individual stocks of companies on the Dow Jones Industrial 30. And I just buy one share of stock of a few different companies. And in essence, I built my own mutual fund. And that's what I was doing with my $500 a month. Now, here's what I think is fabulous. This was at the time of people investing in the dot-com companies.
Yeah.
And when the bubble burst and people lost 30 and 40% of the value of their investments, I wasn't doing that. I was investing in companies, the blue chips. And I was pretty much even with all the money I set aside. I set aside $18,000 over the 3 years. I had $18,000, and other people lost 30 and 40%.
Very interesting. So you would invest the money so it's not just staying as much as it is. Like if you set aside $500 a month, you wanted to put it in a
something
in a financial vehicle that would grow over time.
Exactly.
Even if it's 1% a year or whatever, it's still growing, and it's not, because considering, I think, inflation, you want to put it in a place where it's growing and, you know, turning into something.
Yeah. Now at this point, we have, you know, 7 figures invested in the stock market. But what we're doing is we're not just waiting for the market to go up or down. We're actively using the portfolio to generate an income with covered call option writing. We're making, let's see, what is it? Trying to see, let's see, hold on a second. 5 figures a month in premium income from covered call writing.
I have no idea what that means.
That's okay. It's what wealthy people do.
All right. I'll take it.
I mean, you know, there's oil and gas investments, there's equipment leasing, you know, there's the real estate. I mean, there's piles of things where the wealthy can put their money besides stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And if they're doing it in stocks, there's a way of generating massive income, even if the stock market isn't going up.
Absolutely. Okay. So, another technical question. So then once you have that 10%, let's say $500 a month that you set aside, do you then divide that up into different portions and invest it differently into different types of investments?
Yes and no. One of the things that I do recommend when people are starting out is that they might have to split that 10% into 2 areas, 5% each. And maybe it's 5% that they keep for the rest of their life, and 5% to spend later on the things they weren't expecting to have to spend money on, like the car breaking down, the water heater bursting, whatever. Absolutely. So initially, they may end up having to split that. But the money that they're setting aside and investing doesn't have to go into different areas. I mean, $500, there's not much you can diversify. It's not like you can buy an apartment building and stocks and an oil and gas investment.
Got it. Got it. So I guess you have to build it up, save up to a certain amount where you could do something with it.
Yes.
And at the same time, work on increasing your income so you could save more of it.
Exactly. And,
right?
and they both can happen at the same time.
Right. Absolutely.
When we were building the real estate portfolio, I mean, it took 5 years to go from 3 units to 50 units that we owned and managed. And it took that 5 years to go from $18,000 being everything I had to having multi-millions. But heck, it was only 5 years.
What do you say to people who don't have the patience for 5 years and they're like, I want to have it 3 months from now?
Go somewhere else.
Good luck.
It's unrealistic. You know.
No, but how do I convince them that the long-term wait is the way to go?
You may be able to, or you may not, any more than you can convince someone to get a COVID shot who believes it's all a conspiracy and the previous president of the country knew best. I'm sorry to get political, but even though he didn't think anyone needed a vaccine, he still got it.
Yeah.
Even Sean Hannity is saying it's time to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to throw out names, but
no, it's all good. So I guess the long-term play is the way to go.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
And 5 years, I don't think is all that long. I mean, if you're 30 years of age, you'd only be 35. If you're 60, you'd only be hitting retirement age.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the question is, what's the alternative?
Oh, the alternative is to be broke for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like Warren Buffett says. I love Warren Buffett's got two quotes I'd love to lay on your listeners.
Please.
The first one is, if you haven't figured out how to make money while you sleep, you will work the rest of your life.
Oh, that's gold. I love it.
So what you and I are talking about is how you can create a passive income so you don't have to work the rest of your life. And it can be done in as little as 5 years. The second quote from Warren Buffett that I love is, he says, of the billionaires I have met, money just brings out the basic traits in them. If they were jerks before they had money, they were simply jerks with $1 billion. Which means if someone is good and they create wealth, they'll still be good. Money will not corrupt them. Money only corrupts people who are corrupt to begin with.
Absolutely.
So, my job is to raise philanthropists. I donate 100% of my profits to the charity Shelter to Soldier that rescues dogs from environments where they could be euthanized and trained as service animals for soldiers that would have otherwise committed suicide. My purpose is to create more philanthropists, because the wealthiest people on the planet are the biggest philanthropists.
Yeah, I mean, the more money you would have, then the more you can spend and help others.
The more good you can do. Exactly.
This one thing I learned from Jim Rohn, and I absolutely love what he said. He says, if you make $10 million a year and your expenses are only $3, now you have $7 million that you could give away and help and do some good with it. Yes. But if you don't make that extra $7 million a year, then you can't do much with that. Right?
Exactly.
So,
Jim Rohn has another great quote, which is, your income will be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, which means you want to upgrade who you spend time with if you want to make more money.
So if the people that I hang out with are a bunch of broke losers, what do I do?
You find people who are where you want to be and start hanging out with them. And that's what I did.
And get rid of your loser friends?
You can just spend less time with them.
And I guess over time you would lose them.
Yeah, you would, because they're going to be jealous. They're going to be telling you what you're doing is wrong. They wanted to keep you where you were. And unfortunately, you can either bring them with you or you have to leave them behind.
Let's dig deeper into this, because I think this is a very important topic that stops people from making a move because they don't want to lose their friends.
Yes.
Or their friends don't want to lose them.
Correct.
Like if I'm connected with a bunch of people and all of a sudden I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try to take a different route, and they're like, oh, we don't want to lose you. Don't do that stupid, dumb stuff. Stop listening to this guy who says he can make you a millionaire. Those are all scams and this and that. What has been your way? How did you approach this particular problem, which I know it's a deep subconscious psychological problem, which prevents people from moving? Because here's another side of it, and that is people have fear of becoming rich because they don't want to lose their parents and mom and dad. And how do you overcome that? What's your advice for those people?
Well, the first thing is to become aware of the thinking.
Okay.
When it's unconscious, you can't change it. Only when you become aware of it and start to examine it, can you even think about doing something different. And yes, there are people I've met who said, I don't want to make more money than my dad because that's going to hurt him. He's going to feel resentful. And then but if it's unconscious, they're just operating by it. And then the funny part is, if they actually have a conversation with their father and say something along the lines of, you know, Dad, I'd like to make more money, but I have a concern that might upset you if I make more money than you. And the funniest things happen in those conversations. The father says, what the heck are you talking about? That's crazy talk. I would love you to make more money than me.
That's what usually dads would say.
Exactly. But till you become conscious of it, before you bring it out in the open, before you examine it under the light of day, you can't change it.
Love it. Because here's my experience. Right out of school, I was in school when I started my business, and I started making more money than the crowd that I was hanging out with.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I started losing my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it was to the point where I would call them, "Do you want to hang out?" "No." "Why?" "Oh, you know what? I gotta water my flowers. I can't hang out with you." They would just come up with some dumb excuse.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I didn't know why this is happening. And it was, I guess, happening on a subconscious level where what happened was they could not see themselves in me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to lose my friends. I was trying to hang on to my old friends, and it was kind of probably stopping my progress. But then after a few years, I lost all of them. Then I learned in a show, or someone was talking about how Oprah Winfrey, when she lost about 40 pounds, she lost 40% of her audience because they could not see themselves in her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had this big aha moment, like, oh my God, this is why I lost my friends, because they could not see themselves in me anymore. So I guess for those of you who are watching or listening, if you decide to take a different route, this is part of the progress. So, you know, buckle up, get ready for it. You cannot hang out with a bunch of losers and expect to hang out with Warren Buffett or the likes of him or other, you know, rich and wealthy people.
Yeah. And it's a situation where there's the choice of offering to take them along with you if they're open to it.
Exactly.
And if they're not, it's just not going to work out. And there's a fabulous book by a group of people who've done empirical studies in this area, and it's called Change Anything.
Okay.
And it talks about the 6 areas of support that will allow anyone to accomplish anything, from getting off drugs to creating wealth or a promotion at work or enhancing their relationship. It doesn't matter. This is why I say wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport. There are 6 areas. And they talk about you need to have the friends that support where you want to go. And if you are a smoker and you want to give up smoking, you can't continue to hang around with smokers.
Absolutely. I love the statement. Wealth creation is a team sport, is not a solo sport.
Correct.
I say that about running a business, that running a business is a team sport. It's not a solo sport.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if it's a business, wealth, or even relationships.
Absolutely.
Not something you have to do by yourself.
Yeah, it would be extremely difficult if you do it by your own. And if you do it on your own, you only can go so far.
Exactly.
I mean, we have limits. I know in my experience in business, doing it alone, I can only do 100, 150 grand a year if I push myself. Right? You need people to do anything in life. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, like I used Warren Buffett's quote about, you know, the billionaire who was a jerk before is just just has $1 billion. He's still a jerk.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you associate with the kind of people who are like you or where you want to go, your life is more enriched. You will go farther than you could go alone. And you look at any athletic person you respect, they didn't get there by themselves. They had a coach. They usually had team members that supported them. It doesn't matter where you look.
Yeah. I heard Tiger Woods had 5 coaches.
Yeah.
One for each different stage of the game. Mindset coach, bodybuilding coach, and, you know, all sorts of different coaches.
A putting coach, a driving coach. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And Anthony Hopkins, the multi-award winning, Emmy award winning, Academy award winning actor, When he was asked if he had a coach, he said, no, I have 7. He's got one coach for stage. He's got another coach for voice. He's got another coach for movement. The best in the field have coaches.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I can't see how I'm operating myself. I need someone from outside to look at me and give me feedback appropriately depending on what's happening.
Exactly.
That's my experience. Now, Rennie, can you tell us about your gift here again, the roadmap to complete financial choice?
Yeah. The roadmap is 9 steps that'll take someone from wherever they are to a place where they can have complete financial choice and be philanthropic. And they can hear my TEDx talk, which explains how we've been programmed to think it's better to be poor than wealthy. And the cure is that 9-step roadmap.
I love it. Rennie, I am really glad that we talked today. I got to know you on a deeper level. And now if I want to know someone, I think I'm just going to bring them on the show and talk with them for an hour. Now, let me ask you some personal questions as we don't have a lot of time left. What's one new thing that you tried recently?
Probably changing my calendar schedule to allow conversations like this, interviews, networking, to be only 1 day a week instead of previously it was 2 days a week. And guess what? It still works out.
Very nice. What are some of your favorite books, top 2 or 3 books that have made a massive difference in your life or business?
Well, one of them is The Richest Man in Babylon, which explains the concept of pay yourself first, that I've incorporated into my book, Wealth on Any Income.
Okay.
Another one was by Barbara Sher called Wishcraft. Explains how anything you want, you can get as long as you don't do it by yourself.
As long as you don't do it by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Wishcraft.
I mean, and you can ask anyone for help. I asked my ex-wife help because I wanted to write a book and didn't know how. And she reminded me my ex-brother-in-law was the #5 income producing author for Prentice Hall. I could go get input and guidance from him, which I did.
Most people wouldn't even think about reaching out to their ex. Never mind getting for advice.
Exactly.
Love it. Do you have another book for us?
Okay, Richest Man Babylon, Wealth on Any Income. Oh, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I mean, if you want to find out what the wealthiest people in the country did, read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Love it, love it, love it.
These are the foundational books any business owner ought to be reading. And that tells me my time is up.
You got another 2 or 3 minutes, right?
Yep. And then I've got another interview.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. If you had an ad, a Facebook ad or a Google ad where everyone on Earth could see through the internet, and you had a message for people of Earth, what would your message be?
If you support and love one another, everything works out.
Everything works out. I'm just typing it down. Love it. That's beautiful. What's one advice that made a massive change in your life?
That I didn't have to do it by myself. Just be willing to ask for help.
What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
The stuff we've been talking about. You want to do well, don't do it by yourself. The problem was I was a latchkey kid. My survival depended on me. So I was unwilling to ask for help from anyone else. But in my 40s, I recognized the attitudes of a 5-year-old child should not be running a 40-year-old body.
Love it. Rennie, this has been an absolutely beautiful conversation. I feel like I could just dig more and ask you more questions, talk about money for another good 2 to 4 hours. So I hope to see you back again on the show. Is there anything you would like to add that we didn't talk about?
No, you can invite me back on the show. We'll talk about more stuff.
Love it. Love it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, gang. If you would like to tap into Rennie's wisdom on the financial freedom and creating wealth for yourself, he has done it. He walks the talk. I have known him for over a year now, and I've quite enjoyed being in his company. And he actually does walk the talk, like working with people, reaching out for help, and the rest of it. He has done a book on it. Go out to wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx. Take a look at his TEDx talk, download the forms and the rest of it, and we'll go from there. And as usual, we do the giveaway and give away gifts. If you like, subscribe and ask questions on the show or on our podcast. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and different channels. Write a review about your content or about this episode or other episodes on Apple or other channels. You enter your name for the draw. And if you wanted to tap into our sponsors, Simple Marketing Formula course coming up, go to persayo.com/join-SMF and get a list of the upcoming dates in the course. My name is Mustafa Hosseini. Thank you, Rennie, for joining us again. I look forward to chatting with you, and I will see you on our next episode. Bye now.
Bye, Mustafa. Thank you.